So, Valheim, why is it good? Well, today, while I'm crafting a little bit, and maybe I'll go exploring with the boat later, I'll uh, I'll give you my opinion of why I think this game is so good, was so well received, and why it's good. So, a big important thing is that the game released out of nowhere, like like pretty much. I mean, it was probably announced somewhere, but most people just didn't know about it until YouTubers and streamers started playing it. And then you could just already pick it up, and it was kind of cheap as well. And this is an important thing because no one had any expectations about the game. No one was hyped about the game. No one expected anything. Therefore, once they started playing, anything they experienced, anything they saw, was bonus. Was something that they didn't expect. That they were happily. Of course, if the game was very bad, then no one would have talked about it in the first place, and it wouldn't have worked that way. But because also the game is good, then people are pleased about it and pleased about the different experience that they're having. So that's one thing. But then, why is it good? Well, it's first of all, it's the theme itself, the Viking theme, is an interesting theme. I think that people are somewhat interested in. But most importantly, it's a game. It's basically a survival game. So then, as a survival game, it basically uses the typical structure and rules that other survival games have. Therefore, whenever someone plays it, they kind of already know what to do instinctively, right? So then, with that, players are already know how to play. They don't need an extremely big tutorial, and this game has some tutorial, but it's just a different crow that appears every once in a while and tells you some things, which is another big part of why this game is good. Is that crow, additionally to tutorial, every time it's just telling you what the next step is, and which is a big difference compared to a lot of other survival games. In this case, instead of just being thrown into the world and having to find the objectives yourself, having to set objectives yourself like you would, for example, in Minecraft, you have clear objectives. At any point in the game, you know exactly what you have to do next. So you start the game, and you are in the biome of the plains, and you are told that there's this boss that you have to fight. And in that same biome, probably nearby where you are, you should have an altar where you can summon that boss, right? So from the start, you already know, alright, I have to get strong and fight that boss. So you do, and then you get strong. You get better weapons. It's the easiest boss, obviously. So you do that, and you do the boss. And after you finish the boss, then the crow appears again. He tells you, alright, so you have to go to the next area. And again, you have an exact objective. Go to the next area, learn what you can from that area, meaning that you'll find new resources in that biome. And those resources will unlock stuff in your crafting. So those things will already give you objective as well, as you learn a new recipe for a sword. So then you probably want to do that sword with that new armor. And that is, I think, one of the big reasons why this game works so well compared to a lot of other survival games. Is that a lot of survival games tend to just attempt to be like a full sandbox where you're the one who sets all the objectives of the game and so on, and that tends to actually it tends to make some people uninterested and hard to get into the game. Maybe once you learn a little bit about the mechanics and what different things you can do, then you start to like the game. But from start, it is difficult, and I think this game does a very good job at introducing you what's possible by setting you with clear steps and clear objectives at any point. Another good thing, something that I personally like very much is, well, this game really pushes exploration and does it in a very cool way. The map is pretty good, big, like you can see, and you only reveal the area you've been to. So you only see the areas you've been to, so you have no idea what the map looks like. And in your first playthrough, like now I would say this is my second playthrough I'm actually playing with the leveled up character. But like in the first playthrough, obviously you only know the first biome. You have no idea what other biomes they are. You have no idea what enemies they are, and that really pushes the exploration. And it is very rewarding when you suddenly reach a new biome and you have like the biome, the song changes, and suddenly like you have the new name that appears and so on. I'm gonna try to walk one way. I think that way there's another biome, and you'll see how it changes. And that works really well. And an addition to that is the fact that there's boats. Here in this world I only have the raft, but there's bigger boats and better boats, I think, which I might explore with the raft a bit later. But yeah, and like I've talked a bit in other videos about mobility mechanics and why they're good, and usually in games. And usually what makes a good mobility mechanic is that it's satisfying and it's complex enough so that whenever you do it correctly or you do it properly, it is satisfying and feels good. In this case, the mechanic of the boat is quite simple, since it's just a boat. It's not very complex, but it has a little bit of depth into it. So you have to take into account wind, meaning that if you have wind on the side, it's going to slightly push the boat sideways. And then the way that you move the direction of it might take a little bit to learn. It is still simple, but it has that extra complexity that other games sometimes lack, and it makes it again very satisfying when you actually do it correctly. And I think this is a very cool thing about this game. And then of course, well, there is also things in the waters, like some monster, mostly serpents for now. I think they said they will probably add more in another update. So here I should add to the Black Forest. I think maybe because the good, yeah. So I've already explored the Black Forest with this character, so I guess I don't have the actual thing that shows up. But yeah, you can see here on the top right in the mini-map that now I'm in the Black Forest. The music changes a little bit and so on. Anyways. But yeah, so the boat really makes the exploration also more fun. And whenever you get a bigger boat as well, like traveling with people and so on, which is also a very cool thing to do with this game if you can play it with friends, because it really enhances the experience, of course. But yeah, this game is not perfect. Of course, it has some issues, at least things that I consider could be done differently or could be slightly better. So one of the things is this game gives you portal pretty early on. So like the second biome you travel to is the Black Forest, and in one of the dungeons you find in there, you can find some resource that allows you to make portals. And with these portals, you basically set a portal on one place and another portal on another, and then you can travel between them. And that in essence is okay, like the world is very big, so having a way to fast travel between places is quite useful. But the problem I have with it is that for some reason the developers decided that although it is mostly a single player / co-op game, they decided that it was maybe too powerful and made certain resources. They made it so that you can't teleport certain resources, which I somewhat understand why they would do that. But the problem with it is that suddenly in some cases you have to either create a massive base somewhere else and actually start like producing stuff and producing like smelters and so on in that other base, or you have to bring those resources in a massive trip to your main base. And that in itself is not a bad thing, because again it forces you to use a boat, and it's boat travel is actually nice. I really like it. But then the problem I have with it is that then I don't really see the point of portals in the first place. Like, it allows you basically, to some extent, just the way we would we ended up using it. It was mostly, you know, we would settle somewhere else to mine like a new important resource. We would amass a bunch of it, and once we were full of it, then we would start. We would travel back with the boat. But while we were actually gathering it, the portal would simply allow us to just repair, you know, go back and repair the weapons and the pickaxe and so on, and get some food, and then we would continue mining. So in itself, honestly, since you are already forcing the players to travel, and already somewhat forcing the players to just make secondary bases, I don't really see the point of portals, and it almost feels like a bit annoying. It's like, oh fuck, okay, we got the new resource, but we can't travel with it, so you know, we have to make a massive trip. And for me, like, since I think one of the reasons they added it is because the map is so big. So for me, I do feel like maybe they could have made the map smaller. It's like in my other playthrough when I play with my friends, like we've basically finished the game, like all the available content, yet like we've only explored, I don't know, like 15% of the map. So for me, I kind of feel like maybe you could simply do the map smaller, and then it would force players to travel back and forth constantly, but at least distances would not be that big, and it would simply be enjoyable and not like feel like a waste of time. And this brings me to a second thing, which is in this game you also have carts, which allow you, well, the idea of it that allows you to carry more objects, and like you basically you travel with the car behind you, and that allows you to put more resources in the car and travel, you know, better through land basically, instead of having a boat. And that in essence is good, but the way that the cart is done is done in such a way that it ends up being more of a hassle to use the cart than actually any use at all. So the way it works is that the more objects you have, it's very volatile, like the way it moves behind you. And second, the more you add to it, the more it weights, and the harder, the slower it moves, and the harder it is to maneuver. And then there is some physics in terms of the slopes and so on. So then if you try to go up a slope, it's going to take you ages, or you have to sprint, or you just can't do it. So in the end, and that's not even with the cart full. So in the end, it seems to only be useful if you actually flatten the land and make somewhat roads. So maybe in a multiplayer-ish aspect, it could be interesting if you have multiple bases somewhat close to each other and you have roads between them. But unless you do that, it seems like too much of a hassle. Honestly, I remember like playing with my friends, and whenever I had a friend who used to go and mine iron when we were doing something else, and we could constantly hear him in the Discord like cursing because it was just a pain in the ass to just work with a fucking cart. And at some point we just ended up just not using it, or you would have to ask a friend to come and pick up half the thing that is in the cart so you can actually, you know, properly so you can actually just properly move and not have to worry too much about the fucking thing. So it's a good idea in principle, but then it just doesn't work well at all. And then, well, now that I'm, I guess, at it, the combat is pretty good, honestly. It has some mechanic which work pretty well. I am taking a bunch of damage. So main mechanics, you can just attack. I mean, obviously there's range, but just attack. And the other thing is, if you block at the perfect time, you actually parry the attack, and the guy kind of staggered, and that allows you to crit constantly. So it's, and you have then a dodge as well, which is invulnerability time. And those are like very simple mechanics, but honestly the combat is just good. It works perfectly well. And it's almost better to just block it. So the parry only works with shields, I believe, and if you have enough blocks, so if you can actually fully block the attack. Because if he does more damage than what you can block, then you'll take a little bit of damage, but it won't allow you to parry. And then, well, this is a troll, which is like a big enemy, but it is from the Black Forest, meaning that it is an easy enemy for my character, I guess now. Which that brings me to the last thing I wanted to talk about, which is the progression. The progression in the game. So there's no like actual levels, but you do level up the different things you do. So if you use a sword in combat, then you level up the sword skill for combat, right? If you use an axe, then you have the axe, the combat axe, and then you have the wood gathering and the mining and the running and jumping. And that is also something I really like about the game, because it's a constant kind of reward that you get for just playing the game. Because it's not that easy. It's quite simple to just level up a little bit. So every time you do something, you just constantly, oh, a new level up in the mining, a new level up in something else, and it is something very rewarding. That problem I have with it is that it stacks up to level 50. I think 50 is it. Not sure. But like, I don't think it's 50. Yeah. And that basically means. So what it does is, like, if you're using, for example, a sword, then from level 0 to level 50, at level 50 you'll do double damage with the sword, I believe, which is considerable. But again, since it's mostly going to be a single player / co-op game, for me, I just don't see why you would cap it. Having it constantly improving would be a lot more rewarding, I think. And it would allow people to actually just, level up certain things and focus more on leveling up certain things to do an actual difference. But yeah, so overall, I mean, I really like the game. I would definitely recommend it. Like, to say it again, like, I really think that a big part of why this game worked so well is the fact that none of us expected anything from it. It came out. Then I saw a few videos. I talked to a friend and say, "Fuck it, let's play it together." We played it and we had a bunch of fun. We played it completely blind, so knowing nothing, and it was just a lot of fun. And the fact that at each point we knew what the objective was awesome, right? Obviously, it has all this creative part of it as well, where you have to spend some time improving your base and so on. But that just adds an extra layer of it. And I haven't really talked about the building, but the building is pretty good. I mean, if you compare it to Fallout 4, for example, which was supposed to just work, this one just works a lot better. it works well. You have a lot of variety and stuff that you can do. You learn a lot of different recipes throughout the game, and it's just overall very nice. And you can do very nice looking things, and has some, which is another thing this game is good at as well. It has a lot of things that have little interactions, a little like physics enabled stuff that are very nice. Whenever you cut trees, the trees fall down and they do damage to the things they hit, and then they roll down hills and so on. Like a friend of mine made a kind of rolling hill where he would just cut down the trees on top, and then all the other trees will just subsequently be cut down as well, simply by the damage that the rolling things will do. And then in the building themselves, where you have to make campfires, usually covered to avoid being turned off by the rain. But then it also creates smoke, and then the smoke, if the smoke doesn't have any other place to go, it will amass under the roof, and then that is actually toxic and you'll take damage if you are inside of that smoke. So yeah, I'm stuck. So I'm just using this power so that I put the wind behind me, which is pretty useful power. You get it too late, in my opinion. But yeah, it is business. So yeah, anyways, like I said before, I really recommend this game. I think it is very fun. If you can, of course, play it with friends. It obviously makes the game better. And yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to new updates of the game. The next update is supposed to, I think, from the name of it, seems like it's gonna improve mostly the building of houses and so on. But one of the updates they're still gonna have is like a ocean update, which is gonna add a lot more enemies and so on in the water, which is gonna make the exploration through the ocean a lot more interesting, which is very nice. I can see here the smoke, how it is. I did put like the two little ways out here, but it still like stays here. If I could get up there, I would actually take damage. But anyways, so yeah, I mean, I'm obviously looking forward to getting on more updates so that it adds the new biomes that I'm still missing, or that are still there but like empty, and new bosses, which is gonna be pretty nice. But yeah, I mean, if you can, play the game, and yeah, hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.
I'm gonna tell you a little story about a boy named Joe.